Welcome, students. We are going to discuss the present poem, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Before the beginning of this poem, we will focus on the poet Robert Frost. Now we will see the brief introduction of the poet Robert Frost. The full name of Robert Frost is Robert Lee Frost. He was born on March 26, 1874 and died on January 29, 1963. Frost was an American poet. His work was initially published in England before it was published in the United States. Remember, he was an American poet, but his work was initially published in England. After that, it was published in United States. Frost is basically known for his realistic depictions of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. Meaning is this: in the writings of Frost, we find that he has given the description of rural life, and we'll see his command over American colloquial speech. In simple words, we can say that he is well known for the depiction of rural life in his poems. Frost frequently wrote about settings from rural in New England in the early 20th century. When we talk about the setting of Frost poem, we find that it is set in rural life in New England. That is the setting of Frost's poem. Using them to examine complex social and philosophical themes. When we talk about the theme of his poems, we find that it is basically based on philosophical theme and social theme. So this is the brief introduction of American poet, that is Robert Frost. So here in this part we have seen what is the achievement of Robert Frost, for what he is known to us. He is known to us for his writings, and generally his poems are set in New England. We also notice that in his poems he has given the description of rural life. And when we talk about the theme of his poems, we find that it is basically based on social themes and philosophical themes. So here we have seen the brief introduction of Robert Lee Frost, who is the writer of The Road Not Taken. Now we will focus on the introduction of the poem. Introduction of the poem Road Not Taken. What is poem about? What is the central idea of the poem? We will see in this part the introduction of the poem. In the poem, The Road Not Taken, the road symbolizes our life. Road symbolizes our life, or we can say road symbolizes the choices which we make in our life, or it symbolizes decision which we take in our life. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is the road not taken. The poet says that the path that we don't choose in our life is the road not taken. One thing remember, when we focus on the title of the poem, The Road Not Taken, it seems that the poet is regretting, the poet is remorseful for not making the correct choice in his life. Remember, the whole poem talks about the choices we make. Second thing, the poet talks about the dilemma when we are going to make decision in our life. That is all about in the poem. So in other words, we can say the poem basically focuses on these points. First, it focuses on the choices, decisions which we make in our life. Second, the poet focuses on the dilemma when we are going to make decision in our life. Third, if we make correct choice in our life, then it will be fruitful to us. If we do not make correct choice, then it will not be fruitful to us. So whenever we are going to make choices or when we are going to make decision in our life, we should be very, very careful. So this is the message of the poem. Whenever we are going to make decisions or choices in our life, we should be very careful. He described his feelings about that choice that he had made or he had left in the past. He describes his feelings about that choice that he had left in the past. So as I told you, the title of the poem clearly indicates that the poet is regretting for not making the choice which he had left in the past. The path we have chosen decides our future, our destination. The path here refers to decision which we make in our life that makes our future or our destination. In other words, we can say our future, our destination depends on our choices, depends on our decisions which we make in our life. So decision or choices play a very, very important role in the creation of future and our destination. Our destination depends on our decisions. The important message that the poet wants to give is that the choice that we make has an impact on our future, and if we make a wrong choice, we regret it but cannot go back on it. That is very important. Whenever we make a decision, whenever we make a choice in our life, that choice cannot be changed. That decision cannot be changed. So that's why the poet emphasizes on this point that whenever we are going to make a decision, we should be very, very careful. Once a decision is made, that cannot be changed in the future. That is the basic message of the poem. So we must be wise while making choices. We must be very careful whenever we are going to make decision or whenever we are going to make decisions or choices, we should be very, very careful. So this is the introduction of the प्रेजेंट पोएम द रोड नॉट टेकन। तो ये पोएम पूरी तरह से इस बात पे फोकस करती है कि हम अपने जीवन में जो भी डिसीज़न या चॉइस लेते हैं उसका इम्पैक्ट हमारे जीवन पर क्या पड़ता है, हमारे जीवन का जो फ्यूचर है, हमारी जो डेस्टिनेशन है, वो हमारे डिसीज़न के द्वारा निर्धारित होती है। हमारी चॉइस के द्वारा निर्धारित होती है। पोएट का कहना है कि जब भी हम अपने जीवन में डिसीज़न लें या चॉइस बनाएं तो उसको बनाते समय बहुत ही सावधानी रखनी चाहिए, क्योंकि एक बार डिसीज़न लेने के बाद उसको बदला नहीं जा सकता और हमारे डिसीज़न या चॉइस जो हैं वो फ्यूचर को डिसाइड करते हैं। सो वी शुड बी वेरी वेरी केयरफुल whenever we are going to make decision or whenever we are going to make choices. So in one sentence we can say the whole poem talks about the decision or the choices which we make in our life, or the poet tells us the impact of decision or choices which make in our life. Now we move to next one, that is the poem. You see, the road not taken. Two roads diverged in a yellowed, and sorry I could not travel both. And we one traveller long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had owned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the differences. So here, differences we see in our life that happens due to our decisions. In simple sentence, we can say our decisions frame the future of our life. Now we will focus on the first stanza of the present poem, that is the road not taken. See the first stanza. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Diverged means separated and took a different direction. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. Two roads are diverged or separated in a yellow wood. Yellow wood refers to forest. Wood here refers to forest. Forest that contains the several trees, and trees have yellow leaves. Trees have yellow leaves. So simple meaning is this: two roads are separated in a forest. Meaning is this: the poet reaches at a point where the two roads are diverged in two different directions. In other words, we can say the poet is standing at a point where he has to make a choice, which path he should choose and which path he should not choose. He was standing at a point where he has to make a decision. And sorry, I could not travel both. That is very natural. A person can't travel both paths at the same time. At the same time, he can choose one path. He can't travel both and be one traveler. At a time, he can choose one path. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Yellowwood means a forest with decomposing leaves. Undergrowth means dense growth of plants, and bushes means the forest. So here in this stanza, the poet tells us that he reaches at a point where he has to make a decision, or he is standing at a point where the two roads are separated into two directions. Now he has to make a decision. He has to make a choice. Which road, which path he should choose. He says that he can't choose both paths at a time. At one time, he can be traveler of one path. He can't travel both paths at the same time. Further, he says that long I stood and looked down one as far as I could. This line clearly indicates that the poet is making analysis of the paths which are lying before him. He was making analysis. He was trying to understand which path will be beneficial for him in the future and which path will not be beneficial for him in the future. So, what the poet is doing here, he is making analysis of the path. He is trying to analyze which path will be beneficial for him in the future and which path will not be beneficial for him future. And further, the poet says where these paths lead to, it bent in the undergrowth. He is watching the path, and this path leads towards the dense forest. It leads towards dense forest. So simple meaning is this, that the poet is standing at a point where two roads are diverged into a two direction in a forest. He is making analysis of the path. It means that he is trying to understand, he is trying to predict which path will be beneficial for him in the future. And he also says that at the same time he can't travel both paths. He can travel one path at a time. So he has to make a decision here which path he should choose and which path he should not choose. Further, he says that when he was analyzing the path, when he was seeing the path, he sees that the path goes towards undergrowth. Undergrowth means dense growth of plants and bushes. So इस स्टैंजा में पोएट इस बात पे फोकस करता है कि वो इस ऐसे स्थान पे खड़ा है जंगल में जहाँ पे दो रास्ते दो डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं। उसे इस बात का निर्णय लेना है कि उसे किस पाथ को चुनना चाहिए। वो काफ़ी देर तक पाथ को देखता है, मतलब वो एनालिसिस करता है कि कौन सा पाथ उसके लिए बेनिफिशियल होगा और कौन सा पाथ बेनिफिशियल नहीं होगा। पोएट का कहना है कि एक समय पर वो दोनों पाथ पर ट्रैवल नहीं कर सकता, वो किसी एक ही पाथ पर ट्रैवल कर सकता है। आगे पोएट ये कहता है कि जो रास्ते हैं, दोनों ही रास्ते जो है अलग अलग डायरेक्शन में डेंस फॉरेस्ट की ओर जाते हैं। So meaning is this, the poet has to make correct choice. Okay. Now come to next stanza 2. Then took the other, just as fair. Fair means as good as the other one. So while making analysis of the path, he finds that the other path is good, just like the other one, and having perhaps the better claim. Better claim means better option. Meaning is this, in these two lines the poet focuses on the analysis of the two paths. After making analysis, he finds that other path is also better than the first one because it was grassy and wanted wear. Grassy means unused. So two paths are lying before the poet. One is grassy and one is less grassy. Grassy means the path which is covered with the grass. It means that that path is not used by the people. And the path which is less grassy, it means that the path is used by the common people. So here again he was in dilemma. He is telling that other path was grassy and wanted wear, means it should be used by the someone. The second path, which is grassy, it should be used by common people. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. Meaning is this, that many people had not walked on the present path. That's why the present path is grassy. And wanted where we have discussed that it had not been used by the common people. And he walked on the path, and he also finds that both paths are lying before him, and he has to make a choice, and both wanted to be worn out, means both paths has a desire that common people should pass over them. So here in stanza number 2, the poet describes about the path which was grassy and second was less grassy, and according to him the path wanted the people to use it. And here we see the poet was making analysis of the path. It means that he is trying to understand the advantage, benefits, disadvantages of the present path. So here, especially in this stanza number 2, the poet focuses on this point, that he is seeing both the path, and he finds that both the paths are beneficial. He is believing, he is considering both paths are beneficial for him. But there was one path that is grassy, means that is not used by the common people. Okay. And had warned them really about the same. And this path demands that this path should be used by the common people. स्टेंजा नंबर 2 में पोएट इस बात पे फोकस करता है कि जो पाथ है वो दोनों ही पाथ को क्लेम करता है कि अच्छे हो सकते हैं, क्योंकि वो इस समय दोनों ही पाथ की एनालिसिस करता है और ये समझने की कोशिश करता है कि कौन सा पाथ उसके लिए बेनिफिशियल होगा, ग्रासी या लेस ग्रासी। ग्रासी पाथ वो पाथ है जो कि लोगों के द्वारा यूज नहीं किया गया है, उसे यूज किया जाना है लोगों के द्वारा, ठीक है। और इस पाथ को भी देखते हुए पोएट ये महसूस करता है कि ये पाथ भी उसके लिए बेनिफिशियल हो सकता है, और साथ ही वो इस बात पे भी फोकस करता है कि ये ग्रासी पाथ जो कि लोगों के द्वारा यूज किया जाना है, उसके एडवांटेज उसके डिसएडवांटेज के बारे में विचार करता है। सो इन ऑल वी कैन सी that here in this stanza number 2 the poet is trying to make the analysis of both the path, that is grassy and less grassy. So that is all about this poem up to stanza number 2. Okay. Thank you.